Parenting is an adventure, and like any other adventure, you've got to work hard and be prepared.
The quest is on.
We're in search for all things parenting. We hear from the kids, from the professionals, and from you, real parents on real issues. It's all happening right here, right now on Care.
Care, the adventures of parenting.
Hi, welcome to Care. Today we are all about Know Your Family. It's a play on Know Your Status, but we're not talking HIV. We're talking mental health, we're talking psychological health, we're talking all about the stuff that's going on inside here that may not be easily visible outside to the unknowing eye. But I have brought three very beautiful, extremely intelligent, all kind of names on this paper here to talk about it. So don't worry, y'all not stuck with me as usual. I bring the authorities in. We are gonna start with Mrs. Margaret Roach. She is the founder of Dema Associates, and I came across Dema on Facebook. I was so impressed with all the work that they were doing. You also import psycho-educational assessments. So we're going to talk about that in a bit because that definitely has piqued my interest. I didn't know that is something that can be imported. We have Jennifer Wares. Jennifer Wares is a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. She specializes in women's, marital, and relational issues. I think I might come by her just now. Plenty issues. And psychometric assessments. And we have the lovely Soraya Dean. I pronounced it correctly. Yes. Clinical psychologist. You work with children, adults, and families. You also do psychometric testing along with therapy. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. When I saw the flyer, right? So there's a flyer. If you guys go to Dema Associates on their Facebook page, it was all about, like these testings, and I'm not sure that I like the word test. You guys use the word assessments, right? And for me, that was such a big thing because I'd actually reached out to you guys on Facebook when we were talking about the mental health day for men and, how do we know? How do we even know that we need help? When I always use the example of my thyroid. For those that don't know, I have overactive something active thyroid. And how that, in the beginning, I was so irritable. I had the first ever panic attack. But if you guys know me, right, I was in a burning building and nothing happened. I calm, I cool. All of a sudden, the slightest things are tripping me out or making me cry. All kinds of things are happening. And everybody's like, what is wrong with this girl? Only until there was physical pain did anybody take me on. Nobody took me on when it was coming across as behavioral, emotional things. It was just like, what is up with this girl? And they were just kind of palming me off. Why is she being a drama queen? Only until I started to get pains in my neck did anybody go, okay, maybe something's wrong. And by that time, it was really, my heart was already palpitating. I lost 20 pounds in a week. By that time, it was already a major issue. But because we were ignoring all of the other signs, and I think that's what happens. Even with children, we ignore all the signs and we say, well, they're just throwing a tantrum or they're just a drama queen or whatever. Am I right? Yes?
Yes.
So I was so happy because for me, it's like, how do we know? How do you know, is it a tantrum? How do we know, is it real? Is it something more? And I'm guessing that's where you guys are going to start to answer that.
Yes.
So before we go into all the how do you know, who's going to start to explain to me what they do? What is the difference between a clinical psychologist and a psychotherapist, Jennifer? Because I see you listed both in your bio.
Well, clinical psychologists, they do psychotherapy. We conduct psychotherapy. A clinical psychologist is somebody who has been trained to understand the theoretical aspects of psychology, and that person is clinically trained to be able to conduct the same psychometric assessments and do the testing, all the different types of testing, which is different from a counseling psychologist who would just be trained in psychotherapy.
Okay, maybe I'm not smart enough, but I did not understand you. What would you say is the biggest difference? How do I know whether I need a psychologist or I need a psychotherapist?
Well, as I said, the psychologists conduct psychotherapy, so they are trained to
maybe
do
what is
psychotherapy.
psychotherapy?
Where you, all right, you have occupational therapy, you
Right.
have physiotherapy, you have different types of therapy. But psychotherapy is where it's mind, psycho, mind. So psychotherapy is where
Right.
you sit with somebody to go through your issues, and that person helps you work through your issues, which
Right.
these are mental and emotional issues.
Okay, okay. I think I get it now. I think I get it. So you import assessments, psychoeducational assessments. What is that?
Actually, that is a sister company, not DEMA.
Okay,
That is TAPC Imports Limited.
okay.
But that's the genesis of what we are here doing. The psychological testing equipment is really paper used by clinical psychologists to do assessments, to find out what's happening with your children or with you as a person, as an adult.
Okay, good point. Because I was about to go to, so can this be used for any age, any gender? So it's not just something for children.
That's right. Anybody that feels that there is a need can
How do
come.
we even know if there is a need?
And that is really the issue that we are dealing with. And this is why we are having our seminar, to educate persons as to what they ought to look for. What are the signs that would tell you, I'm in need of some help. Something is not right. There's a child that's acting up. As a parent, I don't know why. Maybe I need somebody to guide me. That's why we are having this seminar, so people will understand when and how and why they may need assessment.
I personally think we're numb to violence, right? I say that all the time. I think I've written an article actually saying we're numb to dysfunction, which means, you know, I remember doing last season, we did something on occupational therapy. And the therapist said, she goes to birthday parties and she goes, yep, you need me, you need me, you need me, you need But the parents have no
clue.
idea.
No clue.
When I used to coach a lot, right? Trying to get back into it a little bit. But it's the same thing. When I am around families, and the more that I do this show, of course, I come into contact with educated, lovely people like yourself. It starts to become, you become so sensitized that it's uncomfortable now to sit in a room because you go,
can determine.
yeah, boy, and you're sensitized. And how do you even approach someone to say, you know, I think it might be worth going to have an assessment? Like, just go have an assessment. So, well, you guys know I have the idea about the mental health day. Because for me, I feel like everyone should have an assessment. You know, like, let's just, because we all go have our teeth checked, right? So
Yes.
you let the doctor, you
Yes.
let the dentist say your teeth in good order.
That's right.
You go to have medicals, and a doctor will go through an assessment and say, you know what, you're in good health.
That's
so I
right,
say
that's
all
right.
the time, listen, whether you think or not, go have an assessment
It
and
wouldn't
let a
hurt.
professional tell you
Yes.
you're fine.
It's not going to hurt.
It's not going to hurt.
Yes.
And I
I think-
so is that something that you can do? Like, someone who's totally fine could just come and say, hey, what? I just want to come and have an assessment.
Why not?
Yes.
And it's good for you to, like, you go to the doctor, get a regular checkup. So might as well take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you start to get burnt out, stressed out. Do it when you're at a good state rather than when you reach a state of disaster, basically.
So you're suggesting, and any of you guys, they can just call you guys up and say, hey, I don't think anything's wrong, but I just want to have an assessment done. Yes? Correct? Awesome. Good. So you specialize in women, marital, and relational issues. Yeah. Come tell me about that.
Well,
Do you have time to sell yourself in?
out of my training, when I did my master's in clinical psych, before that I have been a mental health professional for quite a number of years,
You don't want to
And-
tell us how long?
30 plus.
You don't look so old.
Yeah, so I have, in my previous job, my previous career, I realized that a lot of women have several issues, and because there's not a forum to really explain, because people, again, they would say you're hysterical, you're unreasonable, but you have these issues, these burning issues that, you know, you do not have a forum to ventilate your issues. So I said, look, I would work with women and women's issues. And also an offshoot of that is the marital issues. So the women's issues in marriage.
Okay, so specifically, so when you say marital issues, not necessarily maybe as a couple,
well,
but
I work with married couples,
Okay.
and so you work with them to help them. I do what you call Adlerian therapy. So
you have to explain what that is.
Put myself in trouble.
Yes, you put yourself in trouble.
So Alfred Adler, he was the theorist that said you have to go back before you come forward. So he would not do therapy with somebody and just dealing with the present issues. He would go back into what you call the family constellation, which I find is so instructive when you are doing therapy with people, especially like married couples. When you go into their family constellation, it kind of gives them an aha moment, so they understand that this is why I am the way I am, and this is why my spouse is the way he or she is. And it really gives insight into them, so it helps them to work with each other and realize, look, oh, you're not my enemy. You are this way because of whatever. So
Awesome. I'm going to put a pin on that because, I mean, y'all are getting into things that I'm really, really passionate about. We have to go on a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more. Again, know your family. Who is the person that I've married? What does their family look like? And what does their history look like? Don't go anywhere, guys. You're watching Care. Welcome back to Care. Today it is all about know your family, and we ended off talking about knowing the history, especially in marriages. You know, why are you acting the way you're acting? And I guess that's very important in terms of teens, in terms of anyone. We have a reason why we're acting, how we're acting. So just want to finish that off for a little bit, and then we can maybe go into the details of what the psycho-educational assessments look like. Jennifer, tell me what a session may look like. What are you looking for when you meet with couples?
All right, so for the first session, you do what you call a marital assessment. The basics, how old are you, if you have any children, you've been married before, whatever. And one of the things we ask is, what attracted you to your mate? So each one of them would say what attracted them to their mate. And amazingly, what attracts you to your mate is one of the greatest aggravations when you're married. You know? And then you ask about what is wrong. You said, so the question goes like this. If I was speaking to your mate, what would they complain about you the most? So the man would say, well, she would say that I, and the wife would say, he would complain that I. And so you get the other mate to add if there's anything else to add. So they get to understand what the mate is saying about them, not so much because in the session you don't want them to end up in a scratching match and fighting. So you get the other person to say what.
Right.
You get him to say, look, she would complain that I don't spend enough time at home, I spend all the money, I don't pay attention to her, things like that. And she might say, well, he complained that I argue too much, I don't cook what he likes, little things, and in marriage, it's little things that really cause the most of the problems.
You spoke about going into the person's history, into the couple's history.
So that would come in another session, because this first session, as I said, it's just an assessment.
Right.
So the second session is where you teach them to use things like I messages, because we like to point fingers and said, you always. So in the second session, you teach them to use I messages to say, well, look, this I feel a certain way, and then you give them a list of what you call feeling words. So because I find in our society, we are not able to say how we feel. We would say, I feel a how.
Because our parents told us to stop crying.
I feel a how. They would not say, well, I was disappointed, frustrated, anxious, whatever. And then you go into what you call the family constellation. And that is what we call, as I said, to build insight into the relationship. So both of them sit there, but one person talk about. So you ask what type of home it was, if the mother was working, the father was working, who made the decisions in the home, what were the atmospheric conditions, who were you, what type of when they describe you, what would they say?
What your parents would say about you.
Yes,
Right.
and the other adults in there. So you get to understand, and it's a whole long list of questions that I can't go into now
That's
because of
fine.
time.
Is that
So-
something that maybe you can do in premarital counseling, where
Yes,
you know
yes.
before you commit or whatnot, you know,
Yes.
if you're prepared? I always feel like, you know, if we're prepared and we know what we're getting into, we know these are the challenges you're going to face based
Yes.
on your family's history.
And the premarital questionnaire have additional questions in it, in like how does your parents feel about your spouse? So you get to understand, because you know that in-laws and relationships with in-laws cause a lot of problems in marriages, you know. So it's a whole lot of stuff. So you go through, it's a clinical process
Right.
where you take them through these steps to help them to gain what you call to gain insight into what they're getting into, if they're not married as yet, or what they're into, and to help them to team up. Because one of the things we say is that you're a team. So whatever their name is, you're the whatever team.
Right.
And so the team has their huddle, and they stand against all the outsiders. You know.
Right. Okay, Soraya, you're gonna get your chance, but first I have to go and do finance and the family. Of course, we know we are in a rough economic climate, so we are committed to helping families get through. And you know what? If money's tight, it's sometimes hard to be as happy as we can. So finance and the family is up next.
Practice delayed gratification. Furniture stores that offer hire purchase are actually lending companies in disguise. Lots of their income is made through the interest you pay when you buy something on hire purchase. You pay significantly more when you purchase on furniture and appliances on hire purchase. If your family has planned properly, then you would have saved for these items and for their upkeep and eventual replacement. Do not succumb to peer pressure. Just think of how you feel when your kids do it. I'm sure your real friends would be inspired by your fat savings account versus your new living room set. If you can't afford it cash, then you can't afford it.
Back to care. If you're just joining us, well, you're missing some good action, because it's all about know your family today, understanding your family history so that you can understand some of the things that, you know, annoy your mates and why you are how you are. We are joined by Jennifer Wares, but we're going on now to Soraya. Soraya, you're going to dive into psychoeducational assessments. I know you all wanted to make a plug before we even get into assessments that mental health is very important. So who's going to make that plug?
Well, I'll let Soraya go right ahead.
This is Soraya's segment.
Go right ahead. Let's go right ahead.
We really need to pay attention to our mental health and our well-being. As we were saying earlier, in terms of going to see the doctor regularly, we need to take care of our emotional state. And I think our society is very afraid of the stigma attached to it, and that's why they don't reach out to go by a therapist, because the first thing they think other people would say is, I'm crazy, I'm not crazy, I'm not mad, I don't need to go to St. Anne's. That's the things you hear people say when you talk about going for therapy. And it's really important to take care of yourself, and self-care is so necessary, because you don't want to reach a state of being burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed out. So it's important to do it as soon as regularly and consistently. Yeah.
What does an assessment look like?
So a psychoeducational assessment, it is a battery of tests that we do. So firstly, we do a clinical interview with the parents, because parents are the experts of their child. They know their child best. They know
psychoeducational assessments are specifically for children, or is this something adults and children can do?
It could be done with adults. Mostly, recently and currently, it is for children, right? But adults could do it as well. So we do a psychoeducational assessment. Basically is a detailed assessment to find out your child's psychological and educational abilities. It looks at their strengths, their weaknesses, as well as their current abilities now and what is their potential. What could they reach? Where could they reach, sorry. Right? It consists of a battery of tests. As I was saying, it is a clinical interview with the parents, firstly, to get background information, family background, developmental history, medical history, school history, social history, because all that is essential information in determining any problems your child may be having. If it is not just academic based, it could be contributing factors, right? We also do an interview with the teachers because they are also an important factor to find out what's happening in the classrooms because they spend most of the time with the kids during the day. And then from that, we do our own observations in the room to see whether or not we're seeing things in the room that is probably consistent to what the parents and the teachers are saying or something that is new, right? A behavior that is basically new. And so that is the first step of the assessment. The other step is a series of tests that we do. We do a IQ testing, which is intellectual functioning. It looks at your cognitive ability. What is your potential? What is your ability? It looks at your verbal skills, your perceptual reasoning, your working memory, your processing speed. We also look at your academics, which is math, English, writing, oral language. That looks at your potential currently. So if you have a child that is 12 years old, you're able to tell whether or not the child is at 12 years, below 12 years old, or even above, right? So it gives an age of where the child is at currently, right? Also it's a series of tests we do.
How long does this whole process take?
The maximum is like 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours. Depending on how much your child could do in a session, you really have to determine whether you get exhausted, irritable, tired.
But it's over a period of time because then you have the parents, you have the teachers, then you have the child.
Yeah.
So it's not like a one appointment
No.
to have this assessment done.
It's about like minimum 5 sessions, but it could go on for 6, 7, 8, depending how much information you need to gather from everybody. Because you have to look at the whole picture of the child. Yeah.
This is a real in-depth thing going on.
Yes.
Dang, this sounds like it's going to be costly. Anybody willing
yes.
to tell me the cost?
Yes, indeed, it can be costly. We don't want to fix a price because professionals will charge as they determine their worth.
Okay.
So this is one of the reasons why DEMA Associates, we have come up with a plan of having professionals come on board with us at a reduced cost of like $3,000 for their first session to bring children in, have them assessed, and then the therapist will work with the family. Make it affordable. I cannot dictate to them what their price would be, but what we are doing is making that first stepping stone available to parents. Basically,
You think that the government, this is something the government should be subsidizing in every school.
well,
You know, we're talking a lot about, okay, you know, gender-based violence is in the news all the time.
the time,
We're talking
yes.
about the boys that are delinquent and all of that.
Yes.
And then this
Yes.
sounds like a real solution. Let's get some testing. Let's pay some.
That's where
What are y'all?
psychoeducational testing
No, I mean
assessment.
therapists.
Clinical, yes.
Psychometrics, right.
So what we are saying is, until that can happen, and that's an ideal situation where the government can come in. I know they have social workers attached to different schools, but in the interim, parents need to educate themselves as to what's out there. They need to make tools available to themselves to help themselves. We cannot wait for the government to do stuff for us. We have to get up and get. This is why we are doing this seminar, because a lot of parents, they may have a gut feeling. Something isn't quite right. The child behavior, we know, we can tell ourselves something not right, but what do I do? Where do I go? I can't afford this, I can't afford that. But we are trying to reach out. This is why DEMA came into existence, to be a little bridge to the ordinary person in the street and the professionals. We're bringing them together. We have had seminars. We're dealing with mental health issues. We have been dealing with suicide issues. And we are seeing in our society an increase in suicide among our children. What's causing it? Why? There are so many questions to be answered. So we are trying to allow that opportunity by bringing the public and the professionals together.
Well, this is an awesome conversation. We're going to go to our care tech tip, helping families, of course, to be a little bit more responsible, helping equip them. How do we use technology in the most efficient, safest possible manner? Don't go anywhere. Care tech tip. Then we come back to our lovely ladies, and it's all about knowing our families' psychoeducational assessments. It's no good setting limits on your kids' screen time if you spend all day with your eyes glued to your laptop or firing off hundreds of texts from your iPhone. Similarly, don't ban devices from the dinner table if you reach for your smartphone every time it buzzes. Children take their lead from their parents' behavior, and interacting with technology is no different. Set a good example.
At about 23 years old. Before I got married, we courted for about 6 years, and abuse was always present. Just I didn't recognize it as abuse because it was more verbal and emotional. However, it was after I got married that the physical abuse and the sexual abuse started. Basically, I had no right to my body, so whenever he wanted, whatever he wanted, whatever his desire was, I had to fulfill that whether I was willing or not. He would take it by force. There was a time that sexual abuse included a third party, and I was not willing to do that. I really stood up against it. I remember I was 8 months pregnant, and I remember being cuffed to my face, and I was locked in a room, and I had to witness him having sexual intercourse with that person. So that was really difficult for me, and it was something that took me a long time to get over. Another reason that I stayed was because I didn't want to be a failure. I didn't want my marriage to fail. Within my family, I think it was only like one marriage that would have succeeded, and I didn't want my marriage to fail. I wanted it to succeed. So I felt that if I had left, I would just be another statistic. So I really held on and tried to make it work. Well, I was married for 14 years, and I would say in the 9th year, I had enough. So I believe that I had emotionally left the marriage at that time, although I didn't physically leave. I had withdrawn a lot, and I was just going through motions. However, I think that what would have impacted me in not making that physical move is the fact that I was in denial. I had not seen myself as a victim. And I was doing a degree at the time in psychology, and I was doing a specific course called family violence across the lifespan. And the lecturer was speaking about domestic violence and what a victim looks like. And I remember that day in the class, that was the first time I recognized that I was a victim. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like I had totally zoned out, because I don't remember when I left class or anything like that. And I knew then that I needed to leave. If I couldn't do it for myself, I knew that I had to do it for my children. While doing the degree, there's something called battered wife syndrome. And what started to happen to me in relation to that type of syndrome is that I never saw him as the abuser. I always felt like I did something that caused the abuse. So if I didn't answer back, maybe it would have taken a different spin. And if I had the children do their chores on time, maybe that wouldn't happen. Or maybe if I just do what I'm supposed to as a wife, even sexually, maybe this wouldn't happen. And you know, I remember I had a friend, and I don't know, probably she didn't understand well. And I remember she saying to me that, you know, maybe you should try harder because marriage is honorable in all things and the bed is undefiled. And again, that did not make sense to me because, you know, even if that is what God says, I think that we should both be consenting and both be willing. And I kept saying that, you know, the God that I serve, God would not be happy seeing this. I'm unhappy, and this is not what marriage is supposed to be. As I always say, I think that there needs to be more education. I believe that education leads to empowerment, and there should be more support. You know, if you go somewhere and you learn about domestic violence and you pick up a flyer, it's simple as bringing this and saying, look, I think you should read this. Because sometimes when people read stuff in front of them, it impacts them and they recognize themselves within it than you simply saying, you need to leave. Because that is like if you're just making a judgment or you are just saying, well, this is what you need to do, right? The person firstly has to recognize that they are a victim and they are being abused. And when I say support, you know, sometimes you may have a friend and you may be working with that friend and saying, okay, you know, you need to get out, and they may leave and go back and stuff. And the thing is that if you don't have the patience and the tolerance, you could stop supporting that person because you would, you know, in Trinidad we will say, well, she real stupid, she going back again, she like this. And that's the thing. You have to be tolerant and you have to be supportive so that person knows that even if I go back, Marsha or Kamika is going to support me. They still have my back. They're not going to turn away from me. And when I'm already in that process to walk, I know that at least I have this one person who is there for me, who's not going to turn away, who's not going to think I'm stupid. Because remember, if it is that we give up in our support, right, then remember, as I said, I didn't want to fail. So then you are that victim, thinks that they are failure, and then there's nobody to support me, so let me just stay because I already failed. You know, sometimes as victims, we tend to stay silent because we're ashamed and we don't want anybody to know. But, you know, abuse, first thing it does is it smothers your voice and then it strives in silence. So if you become silent, the abuse is going to become more powerful. So I want to advise you to speak to someone, even if it is one close friend, and let them know what you are going through than taking it all by yourself. Because in making that step, that might be your first step towards freedom and not just bottling it up inside. You know, we need to watch what we say as citizens, because sometimes we make statements without understanding the whole picture and the whole story. And some of those statements can be very callous and very insensitive, and we can impact victims in the wrong way and, you know, cause them to become even more silent.
Welcome back to CARE. Today it is all about psychoeducational assessments. It's our way of helping you know your family. We're joined by Margaret. Margaret has made the assessments a bit more affordable to the average person who, you know, you have a gut instinct, you're not really sure where to go, you cannot afford it. And until, as you say, until the government steps in and maybe, hopefully one day, totally subsidizes a program like this, thank you very much for what you are doing. I want to get back to Soraya. Soraya was going through steps of what the psychoeducational assessment looks like. And I know that there are more steps to that assessment.
Yeah. So again, I talked about the IQ, the academic. We also look at visual motor skills to see if the child has any neurological or cognitive impairment. And that test actually could detect if the child has dyslexia or any emotional indicators. We also look at a child's behavior. So those are forms we give to the parents, the teacher, as well as the child to see if they acknowledge that they do have those behaviors, whether it's aggressive tendency, anxiety, depression, rule-breaking behavior, social problems. And we also do a social emotional functioning test, which is a projective drawing to see if the child is suffering from anything internally in terms of self-esteem or depression, anxiety, withdrawal, all these other things, because these could be contributing factor while the child is not performing that he or she should be at school. And depending on the referral and the concerns of the parent, there's even additional tests we'll add in, whether it's ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is forms for the teachers and parents. We also look at whether or not parents have concerns the child is on the autistic spectrum. We test for that as well. So depending on the referrals, the battery of tests would widen. Yeah, and from that we give a full written report of all the findings, including the interview, give a summary and recommendations for both the teacher and the parent to assist the child as best as they could.
Now, this is available through the government, but there's a long list. Yes, correct me if I'm wrong. Who does it? How do you get this done if, I mean, you desperately cannot afford it?
Right.
How do you go about doing it?
So the Ministry of Education have what's called student support services, so you can apply to get your child assessed through them. The challenge that is happening is that it has so many cases in Trinidad and Tobago that they are overwhelmed with the amount of cases, so your name would be possibly on a waiting list, and it takes some time. So if your child needs assessment immediately, it might not happen immediately. So that is why if you do have the finances and could do it privately, it is best to do it.
When you talk about there's so many children, what sort of numbers are we talking about? Are we in the hundreds, in the thousands?
Well, let's say thousands.
We're in the thousands.
Because that is why there is such a long list. And
So how long can someone be waiting for this assessment if they needed it?
2 years.
well, they have recently
Years?
hired.
Yeah.
They have recently hired some master's level clinical psychologists. So we are hoping, we could only hope that the backlog would be reduced somewhat. But it is still a problem
Yeah.
because remember, more children are coming into the primary school
Yeah.
system every year. So, and they would then come with their own challenges, their own issues, their own problems. So they would be then added to the list. So even as you take off at the top, at the
Yeah.
bottom,
It's just, right. I can't believe you're saying 2 years, because she's saying it quietly, so that's why I want to make sure I repeat it.
It
Yeah.
could
Yes.
be as long as
Almost
that,
2
because
years.
I've heard parents said they've been on the list for a while and it's been a
And
few
then
years.
worse yet, so if your situation isn't dire, do they then kind of put you even further down the
I
list?
can't say. I don't
We-
know.
what they
not
what
too
they have been
familiar.
doing is they try the children who are in standard 4 and standard 5, they get the preference because sometimes the children, those who have issues like those who have processing speed problems, they would try to get what you call concessions for them. So those children have priority in terms of the assessments done at the SSSD, so that they could get these concessions done in time for the SEA exam.
Right.
Oh,
So the children who would be
okay.
in standard 1, standard 2, you find they would be lower down on the
Okay,
list.
and how does, because I mean, that you've just brought up a really valid point, because they're doing that, of course, now to be able to have an official reason as to why your SEA placement score may not be where it is. Do they just, or,
It's ready to help. You would have heard Sarah said that processing speed was one of the indices that you use for the intellectual
Right.
intellectual
so
functioning.
if they score
So-
low
So
on
if
that,
they're, so sometimes children, nothing is wrong with them intellectually, but they do have a processing speed problem, which is one of the issues that children have that we label kind of learning disorder.
Right.
However, it's just processing speed. They cannot process the information as quickly as other children can, so they would be slower in class. What they do is we do the assessment so that you could pick up whether this child's challenges is because of processing speed.
But how does
So
that translate now to the SE?
So what they do, they get a longer time. So that's what you call a concession.
Right.
So, right. So they get extra
in the
time
exam
at
itself.
yes, so that they would not be compromised, and they would score low or whatever because of the ability.
So that is very urgent to be
Yeah.
able to get that assessed very
Yes.
quickly in
Yes.
time to be able to do your SE.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as Jennifer is saying, it basically means that the child takes a longer time to do an activity. So the concession allows them for extra time. Concession also allows them if they need to be in a different room because they're easily distracted. If their writing needs to be bigger because they can't visually see the writing. So that's what all of that is allowed
And
from
this
the
is under
assessment.
the Ministry of
Yes,
Education?
yes.
Okay. Well, let's pray that we get some more so that the 2-year waiting list goes down a little bit. Don't go anywhere, guys. You're watching Care. As we entered, it was clear that this power couple had a bright future and a setup that lent itself to family life. Nicole and Brent run an architect services and interior design company, while Selena, Nicole's daughter, enjoys showing off her masterpieces. The clever home business setup makes sharing their attention seamless.
We actually bring the dreams of an architect to reality on paper. An architect will bring sketches or simple design for us, and we will know how to do the working drawings for contractors to take that dimension drawing to detail and actually build it on site. The architectural visualization part is basically for clients to get a visual understanding of what the building will look like before it is even built.
The couple, like all of us, admits to challenges.
Family life sometimes gets, unfortunately, pushed aside because you have so many demands from customers, clients. You have the general demands because this is not all we do. We work for clients as well. So we go into their offices and we provide services for them. And so sometimes when you come home, you still have work to do. And so the actual family time might have to take a little bit of, might have to be sacrificed a little. And that sometimes is a major challenge. But then you regroup and you say, here what, we're taking X amount of time, we're gonna do something, no work, no time taken away from family, but it is a challenge to always keep a balance. Important stuff that may come first, like, we have to eat, like we have to cook, we need to do homework, we need to talk to each other. We don't sacrifice those things, but there will be times when you may have to sacrifice the going out or a family lime or something like that because you have work to do.
So what exactly is BDW Architect Services?
BDW Architect Services provide architectural visualization
An interior design consultancy.
And as always, we leave you with some tips from this week's Mom and Poptropreneurs.
You follow your passion, you basically dive headfirst into something and you don't even think about the consequences or you don't even think about the challenges as much as, because it's just we are in an industry where it's all about popularity and how many people actually know you. Not who you know, but who knows you. So follow your passion, keep on top of your game with software, keep looking at YouTube. They have a lot of things that they could actually teach you how to use programs basically right in front of you. We are actually in an age where it's easiest to learn. You don't need to go to a school, you could go on YouTube, you could use the internet to your full advantage. That's basically what my advice would be. Just, yeah, follow the passion.
And on the other side of the advice to families who want to have a business, who want to do something on their own. The state of the economy that we're at right now and have been for a while, it's difficult to maintain jobs. You have companies sending people home left, right, and center. Learn something. Do something for yourself that you could do from home, or you and your neighbor, or you and your cousin, or something that you won't have to rely on an employer to make you or give you that income that you need to support your family or support yourself. And your children, you spend as much time as you could with them and show them and teach them that, hey, we don't have to always rely on other people to give us what we need. We can do this on our own, wherever and however, whatever field we choose to do it. Because this wasn't my field of choice. It's something that I've been drafted into by association, and eventually I'm loving it. And so you learn somewhere along the line that no matter what you want to do or you put your mind to doing, as long as you have that goal and that focus, you could do it. You could totally do it. And baby? Nice.
We've come to the end of another session. Thank you, ladies. Final closing comments. Margaret, talk about the seminar, because I know that we cannot talk about the whole seminar. We cannot go through everything in 1 hour. So tell us, how do we get all this information?
Please come out to our seminar. It's taking place on the 6th of May, and it's going to be from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Student Recreation Center, Eric William Medical Sciences Complex, Mount Hope. Once you register with us online, and you can find DAMA, Facebook, DAMA Associates Limited, and our email address would be damaassociatesLimited@yahoo.com. Register. We have information there online.
How much the cost of registration?
It's $150. We are making our seminars very reasonable because we want the average person to come here, learn, be equipped with tools to help your life be a little better.
Well, we will place the flyer and the information on our Facebook page as well. Care Parenting. Of course, all the past episodes are available on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Guys, girls, it's been lovely. Thank you, of course, for taking the time to our audience. We know it's a Sunday, you could be doing something else, but you're choosing to invest in yourself, in your knowledge, so that we can make a better Trinidad and Tobago, one family at a time. Thank you, ladies, and thank you, Dima, for trying to bridge that gap.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
No problem at all. It's been lovely, guys. You've been watching Care.